The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships, or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Very special guest on here. I'm going to say Miss Diana. And Diana happens to be a writer, tangiera, which is she dances in Argentine tango. She's a white tigress, and she is also a coach, which is very powerful. And I didn't mention this, but your last name is Diana Joyce, the white tigress. I really like that. I like that introduction. I also like the tangiera. Can you give me a little idea of what these are? All of these things that you do.
Okay, so all of these titles, they have to do with intimacy and sex. So the white tigress title comes from a lineage, a Taoist female master lineage, which has mastered the transmutation of sexual energy into spiritual energy. So a lot of the practices that we have on a daily basis help us to, it's like sexual qigong. Yes,
okay.
We transform the sexual energy into health, so that our bodies have more energy, so that we are clearer in our mind. We have a stronger sense of purpose, and on top of that, we feel a desire for sex or for physical contact all the time. If you practice this all the time, that's the energy that's just going through the body. Right?
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm so glad you're on here today. I feel like this is going to be a really fun podcast, and
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, how did you originally get into what you're doing? Like, was there an event that took place? Was there a situation that it's like, man, I have this problem, I got to figure this out, or I have this special thing?
This was like a path over several decades, actually. But it took me like the last 10 years. I have been into, seduction, intimacy, sexuality, sacred sexuality, to find myself, because in the past relationships before that, I felt like I don't even know the men that I was with. I didn't even know who I was in that relationship. And then there was also like a sex, like passionate sex, but the heartfelt connection wasn't there. It was just mechanics, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but there was always something missing. It was always kind of like afterwards, I always felt a little bit shallow.
Okay.
And empty and void of something.
Okay. And so when did this path originally start? You say 10 years ago, or?
About 10 years. It started about 12 years ago, about 10 years when I actively began to search and to look for, so what do I want in a relationship? I want playfulness. So I looked for seduction training. So with the very shunned pickup artists, which is like, it's kind of fun to play this game, but you learn a lot during that training. And then it came to a point where I saw that men were actually not just looking for phone numbers and to have 5 women in their beds, but they were actually genuinely looking for a connection, a deep connection with a woman, not just empty, shallow sex as so many believe.
Right.
And so I thought, so how can I help them? How can I help myself help them? And help them help me, kind of like, in like a, how do you say that? Like a co-thing.
Kind of like Tango, right?
Yeah, kind of like Tango, in which you have everything. You have like the claim, and then you have the surrender, and you have, you have to just let go, and you have intimacy and playfulness and all of that, and teach each other doing this.
So let's kind of stop there for a second, and let's dive into, kind of what you said is, hey, a big misconception is men are looking, to sleep with as many, women as possible, or at least maybe single men, maybe even married men are looking to have sex as much as possible. And what I actually believe in that is sex is what men settle for if they don't have intimacy, or they may not have an understanding of intimacy. And so sex is what, we kind of settle for, but that's not really what we want. That's just what we know. And that's kind of our default pattern. What would you say about that?
I'm a little bit split about this, because sex, this is like a great feeling, right?
Right.
Pleasure on top of pleasure, and of course we're going for the pleasure. And so when we're going for this pleasure, and we have like a practice in which we have that pleasure and give this to ourselves, then we no longer are dependent on someone else to give this to us. And in the meantime, it also sharpens the mind, and you get healthier because you're circulating that sexual energy, which is life energy, which is the strongest energy that a human body can generate. Literally, we create life from this energy, not just on the material plane, but also on the spiritual realm and in our minds.
Okay. So this is a very creative energy you're talking about.
Yes.
And so if this doesn't get fed, or this need doesn't get met, what happens?
But if it doesn't get had, then it stagnates. It's kind of like if you don't train that energy, you lose it and you just give it away. And ejaculation for men is where you lose most of your sexual energy, whereas for women, it is menstruation, the bleeding, month after month after month. And so we are losing our life energy because we're having the eggs that we are just dispelling, and men are just ejaculating their semen, and we are giving away that life force, that life energy that we can actually transmute in order to be healthier, in order to have more stamina as men, in order to please the women much more than with just quote unquote regular sex.
Sure.
And so this is a practice that I would just recommend to men as well as women.
Okay, so what is the specific practice you're talking about?
The specific practice goes into rounds of, so for the women, there is it's a breathing practice mixed with breast massages to get the endocrine system going. It's a breathing with certain exercises, also with we train the yoni, the vagina, to become stronger and to perform certain actions that we can just do. We bring up the energy, and then when we clench, that energy goes up and then can come out through the crown chakra, and this way we can have spiritual experiences, like meeting people on the other side, or stuff like that. It's really cool, actually.
Yeah, that's
for the men. It's much more about seminal retention, which means masturbation, but without ejaculation, which is really, really hard to do, I heard. So, but you're training and training. It's kind of like a generator from a motor from a car. So you turn on the belt, and the belt runs and it generates energy. And that's the same thing that you're doing with the masturbation. It's like you're creating more energy and more sexual energy, which is chi. And then later on, you store it in your lower abdomen. There are all practices for that, all exercises for that, which is like in one exercise practice thing.
Okay. So as let's say working with you, you're teaching people and coaching people on these techniques. They like come to you, or are you kind of at first tapping into their energy and seeing where they might possibly be stuck? And then you give them, certain exercises to kind of work through that, or like, how does that actually kind of take place if someone's working with you?
Well, I like to work with people on a very personal basis, not so much I give you this program and then when you follow, everything will be right. I believe in, having like that heartfelt, we're speaking of intimacy, right? And people are missing intimacy. And I believe that filling the cup first is most important. So we create that coachy basis first and see, where are we? How are we from heart to heart? Yes, can we smile with each other? Can we be open with each other? Can we say fuck and sex and, cock and pussy? Can we say all of these things and be okay with that? Do I feel safe with this crazy ass redhead or not? So, and then we just go from there. And then most of the time people just start talking and then we just take it from there.
So what is what is your view on what is the difference between sex and intimacy?
Well, actually, sex, it should be intimacy. It should be, yes. Okay. So, I hate the word should. I feel that a lot of people, they have a habit of letting the day-to-day habits overrun their passion and their connection and the depth of being into each other, and instead of making time for each other and playing with that and trying something new every once in a while, or really picking up, it sounds silly, but perhaps just picking up a practice of 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. What is 30 minutes a day for you if you have to live your whole life for you or for someone else?
Right.
So you pick up a practice and you do this with your partner, or alone, you do solo practice and then you do partner practice, whatever, you want to do. I find that is really cool. And also through the sex, I miss in a lot of men the heart cock connection. Kind of like, it's like, there's a thumping heart and here's a thumping cock. And as a woman, we want to feel the heart in a man's cock. And just please, if you ejaculate, please, with a heart. Yes.
Sure. What is, so you're obsessed with attraction. Okay. That's one of the things. And you're obsessed with intimacy, but what does obsessed with attraction mean? Is that attraction to a connection? Is that obsessed with attraction to a man or woman? What does that exactly mean?
It's based on the polarity of the masculine and the feminine. Okay. So when we speak of claim and surrender, there are two polars, right? One takes the lead, the other one surrenders, or one is black, the other one is white. One is hot, one is cold. I'm talking about the polars that we have within a relationship between a man and a woman, which meaning we have the masculine energy and then we have the feminine energy. And when both are in their energies, then that creates attraction. Okay.
And so being obsessed with this is how do you manage this? Because we all have feminine and masculine energy, but we have this soul, but it's how do we even begin to manage that ourselves, let alone with our partner or our spouse?
So I see a lot that people are confused about this. A lot of women are in their so-called masculine state, which is not a masculine state at all. It is most of the time the wounded feminine that shows up.
Okay.
And with the men, it's vice versa. And so, so tapping into the potential of what do I represent within this body? Do I want to be here? And I came here in this human form as a man, as a woman. How do I identify with that? And who do I want to be? Who do I really feel like? Like deep down in my core, putting away all of the distractions of work, of, just social stuff, and just putting away everything, just really focusing, coming back to yourself and downloading whatever it is, whatever energy you want to feel in your body, because most of the time we're pushing it away for something else. To please the woman, to please the man, and then the polarity gets lost.
So are you married?
No, I was.
Okay.
I'm successfully unmarried.
How long were you married?
I was married for 16 years.
Okay. And so, when did you kind of say you've been doing this for 12 years, but at what point in your marriage did you begin to be like, okay, there's this problem that continues to come up? How did you realize that? And then what did you do to begin to work through that?
So I didn't really work through it through my marriage. We stopped the marriage. And after that, I had time to really just settle down and think about stuff and just come to terms with what it is that I wanted, what I really wanted, what I wanted to feel with my partner, what I wanted to have, what kind of mission I wanted to fulfill. And I wanted to have my partner to have that same thing. So we wouldn't just keep getting into each other's way.
Sure.
So you have kind of a similar mission that feeds into each other, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, so that you have something to work on, and you have a life project, so that you don't grow apart.
Yeah, one of the things that we call that is co-creation.
Yes.
As a couple, and what we find, in the programs that I'm doing, Marriage Boot Camp, is we find that couples are letting their day-to-day lives control them instead of them controlling what's going on in their life. And so they almost become kind of a slave, or in this survival state all the time. And they don't ever actually take the time to, co-create or come together and just be as one, as a couple. And, to me, that's where intimacy starts as a couple, is co-creating together.
Yeah. So that's a part of it. I mean, intimacy to me is a lot more about the authenticity of, pulling away the veil of needing to pretend to be someone I am not, or wanting to be in a certain energy at the very moment I'm just not. The need having to hide or to project something onto the other. And I find that is just a way of fighting for love through the belief that we need to project something or need to be something to be lovable for the other person. And so we just put on the masks, and and then the partner starts to fall in love with that mask and not really with the person who they really are. You hear so many couples, man, I didn't even know who this guy was. He pretended all this time he was this and he wasn't.
Right.
Yeah? So the authenticity within a connection, and then also being wide open to one another. For me, that is the core of intimacy. And then the mission comes along with it. But yeah.
Okay. So what is a kind of a common thing you see in couples today that you maybe work with? Maybe it's on the masculine and feminine energy. I know for us is like, as we kind of begin to work with couples, you kind of start seeing this common, problem, but like, what would you say that is in the couples you work with?
So within the couples that I work with, I see a lot that the men are kind of like downplaying their own masculine side, and the women are kind of downplaying their own feminine side. And then the men start wanting, like I said before, they, in order to keep the relationship going, they still want to please the woman.
Sure.
Although it might not be the right thing. And in pleasing, they turn into like the opposite of their masculinity. It's kind of like it flips, kind of like a character trait. When you get, triggered, it just flips. And it's the same with women. And so the polarity gets lost. It just gets lost. And then after a time, they look at each other and they go like, where is that man that I fell in love with? Where's that woman that I just wanted to, devour? Coming back into the essence of themselves when they were playing and playful and carefree, not necessarily careless, but carefree.
Sure.
In their energy and just playing with that, instead of putting on the hat, ooh, everything is getting heavy, we're together for 1 year now, and we are going to have to do this and that or whatever, society dictates. It's a bit of bullshit, and we have been listening to this for the longest time. And I think just really downloading that feminine essence, that masculine essence back into the body, and then going like, woman, I just need to fuck you right now.
Yeah, I kind of think about when you say that, part about, having fun and kind of letting everything go. I think of like your inner child almost just being free to explore and, not hold back in who you are. And I think kids really represent that for us. Society is like kind of taking the fun out of everything and makes it very like robotic.
Yes.
And, that's kind of what I see a lot of. So talk to me about poetry and the Argentine tango and like how those things have helped you with intimacy and sex and these things.
Poetry helps me in expressing my utmost desires, my frustrations, my anger, everything that comes up. It's like it just comes out and I just bleed into the keyboard.
Okay.
And so with Argentine tango, I picked up Argentine tango because I once fell in love with an Argentine tango instructor. And so that was his passion. And here is a tip for the ladies. If you have your sights on a man and you know exactly what his passion is, master that. Get into it and start to master it. Nothing else blows him more than you taking up an interest that he has. So we were talking about Argentine tango. So I see, after that affair was done with, I stuck around with Argentine tango because it resembles everything that I am looking for in a relationship. And a lot of men and women just come to the floor to experience that energy. They don't necessarily want to have anything with any of the men there or any of the women there, but they just want to feel that masculine energy, like him taking the lead and her being able to exhale into the move and just being taken for the ride and enjoying it.
And so how long have you been doing this?
Dancing tango?
Yeah.
For about 10 years now.
Okay. Wow. So what is it like, let's say, 20 years ago, or, you were in a relationship and maybe you didn't know all the stuff you know now, but what's different when you get into a relationship now versus, 20, 25 years ago with, what's the difference?
The difference is that I go in with an open heart, like completely blown open. And I look at someone as they are. as they are just standing in front of me. And what's important for me is that they can get an idea of belonging, because essentially I feel that this is what we all want, is we want to belong, and we do anything to belong. We want to belong to certain social circles. We want to belong to our families. We want to, of course, belong to the man or the woman that we are married to or that we have a partnership with. And so that belonging, beside all of the playfulness and all of these other ingredients like intimacy, heartfelt openness, and connection, I find that belonging is very, very essential as well. Okay. So that a man can just feel that he is just coming home and he can just leave his shoes at the door and it's fine. Yeah, it's just rest for the day. Rest. That's it. Rest and playfulness and fun and no problems.
So you work with a lot of men. Like, what's a common thing you see with men? Like, what do men actually want at the end of the day? Like, what do you see as maybe a common thing that men want? This may be able to, you gave the men or the ladies a tip in the other aspect. Like, what does a man actually want?
Yeah. So what I see in men is like they really desire that intimacy, the sexual on the sexual level with their woman. So finding that, and also finding the drive within her in order to like have that connection, to have that pleasure, and not having to go look someplace else, because that's the woman they love.
Sure.
And that's ultimately where they want to stick themselves into, like literally. So for the men, it would be probably a good idea to practice seminal retention, like the ejaculation and edging, so that you can just, rev up that masculine energy, because it's going to come up, it's going to show up everywhere. It's going to show up in your job, it's going to show up when you walk the street, it's going to show up when you hug your buddies, it's going to show up when you kiss your woman, and she's going to say, "What happened to you?" And don't masturbate to porn, please.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah. So porn is kind of like when we get into the habit of porn, it's like an addiction. I mean, we are just pouring our energy into that medium and we don't get anything back. It's just visual stimulus, and that's basically it. But you are being left empty, either ejaculating to porn or masturbating to porn, because it doesn't give you the human connection that you actually need. Right? And even if you do this by yourself, that's a form of self-love, but you don't need an outer influence in order to pleasure you, give you yourself the pleasure that you want. And I believe that this is the first step that we need to take in learning again that nobody is responsible for our pleasure, but we are ourselves, and then we go and share it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I coached men for like 4.5 years, and it was amazing to me how many men were addicted to porn, and really just how much energy that took away from everything else in their life. Like you said, like I didn't really know it at the time, but I can remember just asking them, like, why do you do this? Like, I would say these are people like sometimes doing it like 2 to 3 times a day, like daily. And it was just crazy. It was like, that was like their whole purpose in life, was to like figure out when and where they were going to do that next. Almost like, maybe a drug addict, or almost like a food addict. But it was, it's amazing that you bring that up, because it's like porn is not really that much different than someone who's addicted to alcohol, drugs. It's just the energy that it's consuming you with. And that's what you become addicted to, is the energy, not necessarily the habit of what you're doing.
Yes. And then you get no human connection out of it. You just watch it. And the more you watch it, the more intense it might even become. It's kind of like stacking anchors. I don't know if you're familiar with NLP, but it's like stacking anchors, or like in hypnosis, go deeper, and you go deeper into the trance. And it's kind of like the same with porn as well, because like this visual thing, and through the eyes, we're losing energy as well. Like when we're watching, we're sending actually energy into the screen, which is a dead object. So there's no one on the other end receiving it.
Now, do you work with a lot of men or women with like porn addictions, or is this something you help people kind of break, or is this just kind of, if it comes up, you work with them, but like people aren't necessarily coming to you to break that addiction?
No, they don't come to me to break the addiction. They come to me to have a connection with a woman.
Okay. So when you are coaching couples, do you kind of like read the energy and the polarity between the couple, and then you kind of start weaving in your magic on how to balance that out?
Yes, exactly.
And so, you've done energy work, I'm guessing, quite a bit.
Yes.
And you read chakras and different stuff like that. So you can kind of tell what's going on. And as you're saying this, you're smiling like, okay, I feel like now you're fine.
Yes.
To me, it's like, I love that work. It's really cool. And I have someone I've worked with, to do that with for like 2.5 years. And I find it really fascinating. But I also find some people are really freaked out by it. But I think it's really cool. And, for me, as I got more into it, when I first did it, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to hell when I walk out of this place. I did it, and I actually was like, man, I learned more about spirituality in that short amount of time than I ever had at church. And it started getting me to start question my beliefs. The reason I say that is I think we have a lot of beliefs around what we think sex and intimacy really is. What I want to put out there is like, you're really teaching people like what it really means to them to come up with like maybe a different belief or different definition of what that exactly means.
Also, so how people see themselves. It's like, I have to do this, or I have to be that person. And then they like tap into their core of who they really are. And then they show up. And then it's a whole different ballgame.
And do you see people like kind of like step into their power, or maybe you call it their essence?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's really cool. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, if somebody wanted to work with you, one of my listeners, like how would they actually find out about you?
They will go to my website, dianamjoyce.com. Or they would just give in the name, Diana M. Joyce, and then they would find me, my website, my Facebook, my Instagram. And then you get to choose where you want to get in touch with me.
Okay. Is there some different things that you coach on, or is it kind of all the same?
I'm not a person. Some people come to me just for sacred sexuality. Some people just come to me for intimacy, but it kind of like weaves all into each other.
Sure. I don't even know. So describe to me what sacred sexuality is, and then what intimacy is, and like what's the difference?
Sacred sexuality is the part where you use sexual energy and you transmute it in order to become more spiritual. Intimacy is that heart-centered openness towards each other and just being authentic with each other, showing up in your own colors.
The other thing is what's a habit somebody could begin doing around sex and intimacy, say like on a daily basis, that maybe took under 5 to 10 minutes?
Okay. For intimacy, I would say take 5 minutes out of your day to show up without any excuses. And when you come home, leave all of your trouble outside. Leave the work outside, get inside of that living room or the bedroom, really dive into the other person. So, and for sexuality, it's really self-pleasuring. So try and get into the space of not masturbating into your woman, but to really give yourself that attention to your genitals, really like begin to love yourself like on a daily basis. For like, it doesn't have to be long, 5 minutes or so. For the women, the same. Breast massages or getting into a meditation or to just self-pleasure and to really get it back into the body and to know what that feels like and to say, listen, I just did this thing on myself and I did it myself and I want you to do this to me.
Okay, so self-pleasuring is you masturbating but not ejaculating.
Yes.
Okay, so like you figuring out what feels best for you and then sharing that with your spouse, your partner, whoever that is.
Exactly, but also like doing it with heart.
Sure.
Because if you're just wanking away, that's no fun, right? You don't want to give yourself that ignorance. You want to give yourself love.
Hey, I got something for you to try.
All right.
Just put your hand on your throat.
Yeah.
Just where you feel like stuck, and just close your eyes for a second and just take a deep breath into that area and just begin to breathe into that place, in and out. All right. So we got 2 habits: intimacy, taking 5 minutes out of your day, show up with no excuses, leave your work outside of your home, and just be open.
Exactly.
Okay. And then we have sexuality, self-pleasuring, and not masturbating into your woman, but just simply, and not ejaculating, just finding out what feels best for you and loving yourself.
Oh, and there's one more also for the women, is to like, give in to your man. Like when he comes home and he wants to hug you and he wants to just ravish you, why not? Just
I like that one.
Energy, that raw masculine energy, just let it happen and just see how things unfold. Muster up some passion. That's important. You don't just want to lay there, really.
Okay, these are all great. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate you being on here. We will put how to get in contact with you in the show notes. This has been awesome, and it has been amazing. So
thank you very much. I loved it so much.
Yeah. So if you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook. This is where I'll be dropping daily habits to begin living to your full potential. And if you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, feel free to reach out to me. If you have questions, comments, requests, or concerns, or maybe you want a guest on the next show, contact me, Jesse, at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse